Mr. Romney, thank you. Thanks for all your work. This is a lot of behind-the-scenes, very technical, very legal work that makes an enormous difference for the country. So I really do appreciate the ongoing work on this. I have a question about Huawei. We've talked about for years in trying to be able to limit the proliferation of Huawei around the world and communication systems, now in their partnerships for chips development and such. Huawei has become a $100 billion company. So the question is, are we being effective in limiting them? Can we show real progress in future limitations for Huawei getting into our allies' systems and into American systems? And how do we actually show that as a metric for how we're protecting us, our technology, and our allies? Anyone can step in on that. I want to be able to take it.
So, Senator, as you know, Huawei is a significant national security concern for us. They have been on our entity list since 2019. I think
that they're still getting bigger.
Well, our entity list isn't necessarily aimed at preventing their growth.
Right.
It's aimed at preventing them from misusing U.S. technology for their malign activities. And I think we have a level of confidence that our entity listing, in addition to the use of the foreign direct product rule, has had a significant impact on their ability to leverage U.S. technology to conduct their activities. And where we've had an opportunity to enforce our controls against Huawei, we've done it. I've mentioned the Seagate case twice, but it's I think an example of how aggressively we're identifying violations as it relates to Huawei. We have another case as well that we resolved back in 2021, I believe, involving Huawei. We're focused on preventing them from getting our tech.
Okay, I get it. And I don't want to be flippant to say your focus is to be able to stop them from growing. I understand they're a Chinese company, they're going to continue to grow. Our focus is try to keep them out of the systems of our allies and to keep them from stealing our tech and our technology as well in the process. The concern all along has been the next Huawei, the other company that's coming up. Obviously, we have a lot of focus on Huawei at this point. Do we know at this point the next company that the Chinese are using to be able to basically do the exact same thing and to be able to go after technology? When you're doing the entities list, it is whack-a-mole all the time on it. So how is that going as far as identifying those next companies?
So what I can say, Senator, on that question is, we are lashed up with the IC on a daily basis. We are reviewing information. We are evaluating trends that are happening in China, and we are amending our controls when necessary, both in terms of countrywide and entity-wide, or entity-specific, I should say, to address those concerns. And we've done that with regard to advanced compute, semiconductor manufacturing, a number of their key parties in terms of both equipment manufacturing and semiconductors themselves have been put on our entity list. These actions do retard and delay their capabilities, but should we identify the next champion, it's certainly somebody we will actively review, A, to determine whether or not they're involved in violation of our controls, but B, whether or not we need to take some other regulatory action against them to prevent their access to U.S. tech.
It's just a process question, and that is getting the information out to different companies to let them know, hey, this entity is now on our entities list. Because that's changing all the time, have you been able to evaluate how quickly companies are able to get the information, process it? Is there an expectation to say within the next 15 days, 30 days, 90 days that the changes are made in this? Because some of them may be in the middle of contracting in the process when they actually discover that. Walk me through the process of how that's actually distributed out to companies and how quickly that can turn around.
Sure, Senator, I'll answer it two ways. One is from the government perspective, and then one is from the industry perspective. When we put parties on the entity list, we are working hand in glove with CBP and HSI to identify then transactions the next day that would violate our regulations, and then we both have authority to detain those shipments, or if they're moving, to have them redelivered. So we have the ability to immediately take enforcement action against shipments that are moving in violations of our regulations. In terms of industry, obviously, they're published in the Federal Register. I'm sure industry may not reading it every day, for sure. But one of the things that we have made available is something called the Consolidated Screening List, which is a list of all the prescribed parties that is updated in real time from Treasury, State, and Commerce that companies can simply just download into their IT systems. There are commercial systems as well, but it's a free service that we offer where companies can just download that immediately and they get notification. They can sign up through our website for notifications of updates. They can download it so that their screening system immediately picks up those changes. So those are some of the ways that we're working. It's also a way for us to make sure that, in particular, small and medium-sized enterprises, which may not have the resources to expend and buy commercial software for these entities, can simply just import that information for free into their IT system and have an automated way to screen their transactions.
For enforcement itself, and you've talked about that there are criminal penalties, obviously, for selling to those on the entities list. How quickly do you start enforcing those penalties? Because you may put it on the entities list today. There's a contract that they actually do 3 weeks from now. Is that a criminal penalty that comes in? I'm not, again, not being flippant about it, trying to be able to find out how quickly we're able to actually move from it's there to we need to do enforcement to be able to stop, and how quickly it moves to major fines versus this is a contact to you to say stop. You may or may not have known.
Senator Lankford, that's actually a very important point. I would note that criminal enforcement is a very important part of the enforcement rubric, but with regard to penalties in particular, that doesn't happen until after we've adjudicated the criminal prosecution, right? So we have to bring charges. Right. There needs to either be a guilty plea or a trial, and then there has to be sentencing. And so the penalties are oftentimes, somewhat distant from the original sort of understanding of the problem, but there are many non-criminal sort of circumstances or examples in which that information could be helpful. For instance, as Mr. Kurland was explaining, if there was new information that was available to a company that may prohibit them from entering into that transaction, that's still disrupting a potential opportunity for there to be an export violation, because we are looking for opportunities short of criminal prosecution to stop and disrupt that threat.
Sure. Grateful to do that. Thank you. Thanks for the questioning time. I may follow up with you on some questions on university students that are foreign students here in the United States. That's a growing population that we're not going to try to cut off all foreign students here, but there are challenges that are there when they're involved in research, and there may be the possible transfer of technology or information as well. And I'll try to follow up with some questions for that. Thank you.